Stephen, I'm excited to talk to you about your journey, your success. We're going to do a case study on a particular deal that you're working on, a fix and flip deal. So I'm excited to talk about that. I love fix and flip. So Stephen, maybe start out by telling us a little bit about your journey.
Well, my name is Steve Card. I'm located in Central California. And really my real estate journey started years ago. My eyes were opened up to, the power of real estate in terms of investing. When I was in my teenage years, I worked in construction, started off as a laborer, worked my way up in some general carpentry, started framing houses, and ended up on a finished carpentry crew. A few years later, my dad actually inspired me. He was working for a mortgage lender, and he asked me if I wanted to help him clean up a property that him and a partner were buying. And he said, "Hey, this house is in foreclosure. My partner and I are going to buy it. And do you want to come up and help us trash it out, clean it up?" Just because I had a strong work ethic and a construction background. So I said, "Yeah." We went up and cleared out the property. And he paid me for the day. Had lunch, had a good time, and shared the numbers with me. They bought this property cash, held it for maybe a week or two, and flipped it to another investor. And they made like $40,000 a piece. And these were late 1980s dollars. Late 89 or so. At the time, I'm like 20 years old, and I thought, wow, mind blowing,
Yeah.
That opened my eyes. And then I realized, hey, someday, I'm going to do deals like that.
That's really interesting because for a lot of us, we may be involved in real estate a little bit or around it or see it, but this idea that there's the investor side, there's somebody that's making the lion's share of the profit, and it's usually not the contractors, right? It's usually the investor. And how do we become that investor? I know most of you guys know Pace Morby, but he said, I heard him say that he was involved in 7,000 transactions on the contractor side and never realized that there was an investor, and that most of those investors were doing deals with zero downs, like none of their own money. They were leveraging other people's money to do deals. And so that's really eye-opening when that happens. So then fast forward to just a few years ago, you get started. You had mentioned that you had done a couple wholesales, a couple wholesales. What did it look like when you finally started to take action and got that first deal? What was that part of your journey like?
Yeah, well, really exciting. I actually didn't go continue in construction, although I did love it. I found a different path, and I got a career job. And I decided to, take action and try to pick up some off-market deals. Mm-hmm. And so, I followed that path, kind of learned how to do it, took some training on it, short courses on wholesale and investing. And I just started taking action, making contact with sellers, trying to get a deal. So I ended up finding a house that I picked up from the owner. It was distressed, very poor condition. And I ended up picking that property up and doing a wholesale transaction on it, selling it to a large flipping company, and built a relationship there. And, once I did that, I was hooked in terms of, finding deals. It's fun for me. It doesn't feel like work.
What'd you make on that deal?
I only made a small amount, like $3,000.
Yeah.
But I realized that one deal with $3,000, the sky's the limit. I can repeat that, and I can make unlimited amount in terms of investing. And not just that one strategy. That particular one was a wholesale assignment. But I realized that I can pick up deals. I can develop that skill further and systematize it, and then ultimately it was just huge upside.
Yeah, I love that you have that mindset, because a lot of times people get into the business and they're just thinking wholesale, when really the correct mindset, I believe, is to think, I call it an acquisition engineer or an acquisition expert. When you can become really proficient at sourcing and finding deals, and then have an open mind about different exit strategies, that's where the sky's the limit, because now you're not just thinking about how do I get into deals, but and only do an assignment or only wholesale, but rather what are all the other options I have? And I kind of like to look at deals like, okay, well, I got this good deal, or maybe I've got a good deal, depending on my exit. What are my possible exits? What's the biggest return on investment for my time, energy, and effort to then get out of this deal? Maybe even if that's long term, but thinking about it in those terms, I think is a really smart way to approach the business. So I like that you've got that mindset about it. Everybody listening too, I think wholesaling, especially the assignment, is a great foot in the door strategy. It can be the end all be all. I talk about this a lot, where like you end up building out a volume business. You're doing multiple transactions, making a lot of money, staying just in the wholesaling world. But I think oftentimes a really smart path then is to transition from getting good at finding those good deals, and then thinking about other types of exits, like fix and flip, for example. And for you did off market, but then you also learned on market as well. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I continue doing some off market deals. And like you said, Jerry, I agree 100%. In fact, I don't even like to be pigeonholed into just do an assignment. It's hard with a wholesale assignments, I think, I don't like being vulnerable to someone else performing. And so I'd rather build strong relationships with individuals that I know that will perform and do what they say they're going to do. And I'd rather keep a smaller group of individuals to invest with personally.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree. I'm very relationship driven in all aspects of business. So I would prefer to have a smaller group of investors that I work with that I know perform and have a track record and keep their commitments than maybe like this contract or this assignment with this cash buyer that's promising these big numbers, and then I have no idea whether they're going to perform or not. I agree. I want to be known in the industry and with my sellers and everybody I interact with as the guy that performs, does what he says he's going to do. That reputation goes so far. I think it's such a small community if you really think about it in your market, and you don't want to be known as the guy that repeatedly backs out of contracts, doesn't perform. And it's powerful when you can sit down with a seller and say, I perform on my contracts. I have a track record of performing. Not only is it a confidence thing, but it really lets the seller feel at ease. And the biggest thing a seller wants is they want to feel confident that the deal's going to get to the closing. That's the number one thing sellers want, is they want the confidence to know that you're going to perform. Okay, so let's talk about an on-market deal. You had mentioned offline before we started. You've got this fix and flip deal that you're doing right now. I really love the story of how you got into the deal, how you put it together, the challenges you had to overcome. So let's break that deal down. This is the fix and flip deal that you wanted to talk about as a case study. So tell us a little bit about this deal, how you found it first, and then we'll start to get into the numbers a little bit.
Okay. So yeah, I've got a deal in progress that is a fix and flip, like you mentioned. And I got into the on-market strategies as well, in large part because of what you have putting out there on your YouTube channel. Really took a lot of value from your training in terms of how to analyze deals, how to communicate with agents, how to underwrite them, how to get alerts in terms of opportunities, right, through systematizing Redfin and other tools to give you alerts on fix and flip on market deals, and just how you broke it all down. So I looked through all that, studied your training. I got a lot of value, and I just want to give you props for that, because some of the training that I've paid for some training, several $1,000s for different training programs, and I've gotten value out of everything, right? But what you offer on your YouTube channel, which is free, is by far more valuable than a lot of the paid training, frankly, right? So
thank you. That means
step by step. I'm sorry.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. Thank you for telling me that.
Yeah. So your step-by-step breakdown in terms of communication and so forth, it resonated with me because I had known from my own experience dealing with sellers, dealing with agents on off market, that just everything that you put out there was spot on, right? So this particular deal that I'm talking to you about right now was one in my market, and it was I got an alert from a Redfin message that it was listed. There was a fixer and I immediately noticed the price was lower than the average median price point for that size home. That got my attention, and that's because I've been studying my market daily, looking at numbers, looking at properties, hundreds and hundreds of deals. And so when I see one that's priced that it might be an opportunity, it gets my attention. Yeah. So as soon as I saw it come out, I reached out and called the listing agent, probably within, 40 minutes of it being published. Got on the phone and said, "Hey, I'm calling about the property. I'm interested in it. What can you tell me about it? You got any action?" Just built some rapport quickly with the agent, and got a conversation. He told me about it, and I asked for some more photographs. The published photographs weren't ideal, so I wanted a little bit more, get my arms around it. He quickly sent me that information, and I evaluated it, and I ended up shooting him over an offer, and I used your 10-point offer format, which I found was just great. I've been using that, and so that was very helpful, right? Because it just breaks down the terms that I'm going to want for the deal. And,
the reason why, sorry, Stephen, the reason why that's so important is because remember, guys, the agent is going to write the offer with their state-approved contract. That's how on market works. They're going to use their contract. I'm assuming, Stephen, you double dipped.
Yeah, that's right. I asked the agent, "Hey, would you be willing to represent me?" And he said, "Yeah, for sure." And I said, "Okay, great." Right. So submitted the offer, and
that 10-point checklist. What it is it's all of the things that you want to make sure get in the contract that they write. Some of it you may customize a little bit, or there may be some back and forth. Some of it's negotiable between the seller, like if they agree to those things. But that's like anything, right? You got to create the terms of a contract. But that checklist is great because it just keeps you on track with all the things that you want to make sure get in that on market contract. So I'm sure the agent really appreciated that you sent that as well.
Yeah, that's right. And it's helpful that you put that information out there. It just helps you kind of set up, right? When you find an opportunity, you got to act fast. So
you made the offer. Did you, I'm sure you included some due diligence, right?
Yeah, for sure. A 10-day inspection.
Perfect. Yeah.
That was about it. But, this particular agent, was smart, right? He said, "Hey, I really want you to come take a look at the property." Because I think that he's probably afraid that we wouldn't perform and didn't want to tie it up and waste his time. And I could tell there was an urgency in selling the property, right? So I ended up getting a hold of my partner. I've got a joint venture partner who's very experienced flipper, a great asset to my team, someone I collaborate with. And I got a hold of him and said, "Hey, I'm not available to run by the property right now. Would you mind swinging by and walking it for me just to confirm a few things?" Yeah. Broke down the deal. He went over and confirmed, what I observed. In fact, this particular property was great because it was priced under value. Even as is, it was a little bit undervalued. And it was advertised by the official records on the square footage. Turns out it's actually larger, had been, pretty professionally done in terms of rehab and addition and so forth, right? Expanding the property, footprint of it, all finished. And then it actually had a second unit in the back. So this one was advertised at like 1,280 square foot house. It's actually, I measured it, it's about 1,750 square feet, the actual house. And then the rear house is another 600 square foot plus ADU or.
This is a really important thing. I'm glad you caught this. I don't ever take the information that's provided at face value. You really want to look into those other things like additions, more square footage. Sometimes it bites you the other way where it's less than what they say it is. But you want to be paying attention to the garages, the basements, the square footage, additions, floor plan, because not always is that stuff advertised correctly, especially on a distressed property, because it's distressed. So usually with distressed properties, there's very minimal effort by the agents to do any type of homework on the property. He probably just re-input data that he found on public record or from a previous listing from years ago before the addition or whatever. And so you caught that by doing your walkthrough and realized, hey, there's a whole lot more equity potential here because there's more square footage than is being advertised. Now, at this point, you're working this relationship with this agent. Was there like showings going on? Were there other offers coming in? What was the action like at this point?
Yeah, that's right. There was. I followed up in the morning. Like I said, I had an initial conversation and shut the offer over right after it was advertised, and I had that initial conversation. That was kind of later in the evening, ultimately, when I finished up with that. So the next morning, reached out, and things had changed a little bit in terms of relationship, because I think the agent then realized this was a high demand property, right?
Property.
Yeah, and it's got 5 other offers came in, right?
Yeah.
So I, was very, very positive and very assertive in the communication. Said, hey, where are we at in this deal? And he said, well, I got multiple other offers. And I said, well, it sounds like my offer's being pushed to the bottom. What's it going to take to get this thing done? And so I pushed, and I ended up paying a little bit over the listing price.
Okay.
10 grand over.
Yeah.
But the upside on it is big margin.
Yeah.
From looking at all the comps in the area.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about this a little bit. In the perfect world, like what just happened to you is like me every single day. It's normal. This would be what I call like all the stars align. The agent is super proactive to get your offer in right away and get it accepted. So he's motivated by the double commission, which is what you were trying to do. You let the listing agent represent you. He would get the full 5 or 6% commission. And also you need a seller who's willing to lock it up right away and not wait to see what else happens. If you can get a seller willing to lock it up right away and an agent who's willing to push really hard to get the offer in and accepted, that's your best situation. Next best situation is you do what you do, and you're just working your numbers. You're coming up to your maximum allowable offer, which happened to be more than list price, because you now knew the asset you had was valuable, more valuable than you thought, or more valuable than list price. Like paying 10 grand over is still a big win, because you know that there's a big upside on your ARV. And then now you're just beating out everybody else. Not ideal, because you could have got it in the perfect world for 10 grand cheaper had that agent locked it up the night before. But that's the game, right? You do what you can, do. A lot of times you won't get the deal. Someone's going to come in paying more than you. Even that to me is a win, because you made a relationship with an agent. I always focus on the relationship, meaning, hey, this one didn't work out, but I'd like to be your go-to guy that you call when you get deals like this in the future. Can you call me when you get deals like this? What did you end up getting the contract for then?
Purchase price on this house was $185,000.
Okay, so you settled at 185. You executed that contract. You got it under contract, and then the closing was how far out?
I think it was like 3 weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So typical usually 3-4 weeks is normal. And then your intent from the beginning was to keep this and fix and flip, right? Take it down and fix and flip.
That's right.
Okay. So, and you've got a partner and a team where you're doing that. So any hiccups with closing, or did it close pretty easily?
No, it went great. And so my partner stepped in and took over the project, and we've got a joint venture agreement on that. And
okay. How'd you finance?
Private money.
Okay. 100%, or did you put some in, or how'd you handle that?
100%.
100%. I love private money, right? One thought, Stephen, I'm sure you've heard me talk about this, but if you've got access to private money, rather than leverage 100% of your private money, think about using hard money for about 80% and then 20% of your private money. That allows you to use your private money on multiple deals rather than tie it up on one deal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great point.
You're going to pay a little more usually, not always, but usually with hard money, because they're going to charge whatever in points and closing fee and appraisal fees and all these other fees. But I'd rather take 100,000 from a private money investor and use 50 on this deal and 50 on that deal. Now I'm doing 2 deals, still 100%, because I'm using the private money to cover what hard money won't cover.
That's right.
Because hard money doesn't cover all of it. So anyway, it allows you to then do more with your private money investors by spreading them out. And then what's your rehab budget on this one?
It's going to be somewhere around 35 grand.
Okay, so basic rehab, not expensive, really.
That's right.
That's basically a carpet paint, right? That's a fairly average rehab. And so then what's your ARV you're hoping for on this one?
Somewhere around 300 to 330 or so in that ballpark. Not sure,
Okay. And if you hit those numbers, I would anticipate maybe a little less than you thought when you went into it, right? To move it quick and with kind of a slowing market. Maybe not. Depends. That's not a blanket statement everywhere. Some markets are still appreciating. Yeah. And then if you hit those numbers, what will your profit be after closing fees, after financing, after rehab, after everything?
Well, of course, it depends on what it sells for, but it's probably 50 grand plus.
Yeah.
What we're looking at.
Great. So are you feeling good that you took that down and you're going to rehab it versus maybe wholesale it for 10, 15 grand or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. And this one, it comes down to relationships too, building a relationship with a partner who's got the crew, has a lot of expertise. And so again, like I said, it's all about relationships. But I think the flipping is a great strategy. And like you said, each deal is going to present opportunities. And so my goal is to try to get better as an investor, more diverse as an investor in terms of my disposition strategies, right? Whether it's a wholesale assignment or a fix and flip, just depends, right?
Awesome. I love this deal. Thank you for sharing that. I really liked the agent part and how you structured that, how you were able to get the deal. I love talking about how you structured your joint venture with a partner that can do that, especially since you have limited time with a career. So guys, leave a comment, say, Steve, you are a flipping genius. Definitely, Steve, keep me posted on your progress. I'd love to know when that baby closes and what you end up settling at. Love what you're doing. Thank you again for taking time to share that with us.